Hey guys, this is actually part 2 of the Raven Mocker entity video I did. All of these stories are user submitted by Aaron Inkland, so a big thanks to him for these stories. Enjoy. The next few stories are dream attacks mostly. I have a lot of those these days. I figure it's due to how incredibly difficult it is to lure me outside at night. After the 3 physical encounters, let's just say my paranoia kicks in literally for no reason at all sometimes. The slightest odd feeling, and my ass is indoors, armed to the teeth, with the house on lockdown. I just assume Cat God is experimenting with new tactics because of this. So anyway, time passes, and it's mostly just little stuff for a while, and then it starts to flare up again. This thing likes to announce his presence when he starts feeling uppity. The next few stories are from one of his recent uppity moments. So the strange sounds, knocking on the floors, and feelings of being watched start to come increasingly more frequent, and then one night I hear this very aggressive barking coming from my front yard. Dogs pass through our yard all the time. I make friends with most of them. Shoot, I make friends with pretty much all the wildlife that I come across, even the spiders and snakes. They're attracted to me for some reason, but not this dog. The first night I didn't see him. The second night I only saw his eyes. The full moon was out, and the yard was very well lit that particular night. Of all the places that dog could be standing, it chose the darkest part of the yard, between a huge tree and a white shack-like building where we store junk that we don't have room for in the house. The spot was basically one big shadow. This was the same area the dog had been barking from the night before. So I go outside and I see these 2 bluish glowing eyes that are pretty widely spaced apart, meaning that this dog was huge. It sounded pretty big too. Our eyes locked and I got this very unsettling feeling. There was nothing out there. The dog appeared to be barking at my house and me after I came outside. Again, very aggressively. There was something really off about this dog. Assuming it was trying to lure me outside to the tree line, I fired a warning shot in the dirt a few feet in front of it. I never saw or heard it move, but it wasn't there after I fired. I would have seen it if it had ran in any direction because that shadow was just around the tree it was standing under. Plus, I have really good hearing. I can usually make out the sound of even the slightest movement in the woods. I definitely would have heard that dog running through the dead leaves. It was like the eyes shut and the dog just vanished. It came back the next night and barked around my side of the house, near my bedroom window, but back in the woods a little ways. It snowed a few days later, and we found its prints. They were almost as big as my hand if I spread my fingers apart as far as they'll go. I halfway thought it was just some abnormally large and mentally disturbed dog, so I decided not to shoot it. Not that it would have helped if it had been what I thought it was. Probably would have pissed it off. A few nights later I had a dream about a cougar that seemed to shrink and grow at random as it walked around my front yard. It was huge. It kept coming up the porch and trying to get in my front door. At one point, it somehow got its head inside. It was bear-sized. I was sitting with my back against the door to keep it out. It wanted in so badly. I shrugged this one off as just a normal dream until the next night, when I had the exact same dream, only this time, it was a man in a dark hooded cloak. He wore a mask that appeared to be carved from wood and painted white. It had markings, but I don't remember what they looked like. It vaguely resembled old masks that our people wore during certain ceremonies, like a booger mask or something. It had eyes that were made up of large black pupils, surrounded with deep blood-red iris, and a black outer layer, or at least that's the way I remember it. They were definitely red, and they emitted a soft light with a reddish glow, not super bright or anything. Like the cougar, he also seemed to grow and shrink at random, and kept trying to get through my front door. It almost looked like he was floating as he crept up onto the porch. It got maybe 4 feet from the door, and I just reacted with the first thing that crossed my mind. I started banging against the door and yelling like I'd lost my mind. I guess I figured it might scare it away. I was very wrong. It stopped, cocked its head sideways a little, and just stared at me. This thing had to be about 9 feet tall. It reached out its hand toward me, and I stopped dead in my tracks. The hand moved really fast, and I woke up almost immediately. He had something in his hand. I'm not sure what it was, but I want to say it looked like a gun, but I've never heard of a witch that carried a handgun, so yeah, weird. This next one happened about a week following the cougar and red-eyed man dreams, somewhere around mid-January 2018. Before I get into this one, I'm going to say that I've never had any sleep paralysis experiences, but this one kinda sounds like sleep paralysis to me, mostly because I don't remember waking up. I believe I was already awake. I'd just gotten in from work one night, and I decided to take a nap because I was exhausted. Somewhere during that nap, I had a dream that I was walking through a field, and I was attacked by a swarm of ravens. I say swarm because there was a literal fuck ton of them. Pardon my language. Like kicking a huge hornet's nest, but with huge black birds. They pinned me down on my back and held me there. I struggled for a while, then I woke up. I was laying on my back in my bed, same way the birds pinned me down in the dream. I was still very tired, so I closed my eyes and started to go back to sleep. And then something hit me. And then another, and so on. This startled me a bit for some reason. I couldn't hold my eyes open. I struggled a little and realized that I was still pinned down. I started to get the feeling that something was in my room with me, and I suppose it became aware that I was aware of its presence. I started to hear this quiet laughter, like cackling, sort of. It was like the thing was trying to be quiet, but not too quiet. It wanted me to hear it. It just kept up this terrifying laughter and throwing what I thought were twigs or something at me. This went on for maybe 10 minutes. The whole time, I was struggling to hold my eyes open and turn my head to face it, but I couldn't. Finally, I just gave up and let my eyes shut. I never went back to sleep, but after a little while, I couldn't sense it anymore. The twig throwing, or whatever, had stopped, as well as the cackling. I slowly started to regain control of my hands, and eventually the rest of my body. I opened my eyes, sat straight up, and finally got my look at that damn corner. Nothing. What was really weird is I don't move a lot in my sleep, and I normally sleep face down. I always wake up exactly how I fall asleep. I don't sleep on my back with my hands by my sides, and I don't sleep on that side of the bed either. I woke up in the same position that I was pinned down in during both dreams. I've only ever had one other dream, even remotely similar to that one. It was probably the worst dream attack I've ever had. It was a small, almost doll-sized child. It was at the age when kids' mouths never stopped moving and everything they say is just the cutest thing. It was adorable, right up until it hugged me. It latched onto my chest like a leech, dug its claws in, and started saying these really horrible things. It began to morph into some kind of tiny hobbit monster. Eyes turned into black holes, and the skin turned gray like a corpse. It began cackling, and again, I became paralyzed and unable to move. I started to get really tired, and thought I was going to die. With the last bit of energy I could muster, I managed to rip it off like a band-aid and fling it across the room. It hit a wall and the head jerked back up and glared at me. I woke up. I could still feel its presence in the room. I was instantly 6 years old again. I pulled my feet up under my blanket and sat Indian style in the center of my bed. I was literally wearing a security blanket. My head was the only thing that stuck out. I sat there until I felt safe enough to move. Then I leaned back to grab my phone and used it to light up the room just enough to make me feel comfortable with the idea of getting up to turn the light on. 6-year-old me wasn't half as afraid of the dark as I was that night. A few weeks ago I was outside on the porch making darts, and I started to get that familiar it's close and it's watching me feeling. So I got up and went inside. Every dog for at least a mile started to lose their minds about that time. They barked hysterically all night. So anyway, I settled in on the couch and started watching TV. Eventually, I got tired and laid down to take a short nap. Somewhere during that time, I had this dream about a tall black shadow man that would chase me around and literally choke me out and sling me around like a rag doll. You know how in dreams when you die, you usually wake up? This one didn't work that way. I spent what felt like days in this dream with this thing just chasing me around and choking me until I passed out. Every time I'd wake up, he'd choke me out again. I tried running. He just grabbed me by the ankle and hurled me at a wall. I tried fighting back and immediately found myself flying toward another wall. I even tried pretending to be dead a few times. I hit more walls. I don't think there was a wall in that house that I didn't hit. About 4 a.m., I finally woke up. I sat straight up and didn't move for about 5 minutes. The dogs quit barking. The presence slowly left the room. And then I finally felt safe enough to move. Now let me describe the scene. So our couch has this sort of built-in footstool at one end with a double-sized cushion on that side that connects the stool to the couch itself. On this end of the couch, I had a near-perfect straight line of objects that included one large square glass ashtray, a TV remote, and my smokes and a lighter. I laid face down with my head facing the back of the couch, and I was wearing my hat backwards on my head. Now when I woke up, I was on my back, with one leg dangling off the couch, and the other hanging off the back of the couch. My hair was a mess, and my hat was on the stool right next to the TV remote. It was now included as part of the straight line of objects that I had laying next to me on the couch. This line was completely undisturbed, so I somehow managed to flip onto my back, slide a few feet down and up the back of the couch, while also taking my hat off and placing it neatly into a line of junk without disturbing any of it, in my sleep. I even asked my mom about it the next day. I asked if she'd taken my hat off and she said I was still wearing it when she went to bed.